Hashtag intimate relationships. Did you know that among couples who look deeply in love, more than half may still break up within 7 years? You may think the problem is always the other person, but the truth is usually hidden somewhere you can't see. Why do you keep falling for the same type of person? Why do two people who clearly love each other still end up hurting each other in the same painful patterns? Today, we're diving into the book Intimate Relationships by Christopher Meng. Based on decades of psychological observation and relationship work, this book gives us one powerful idea. Most problems in intimate relationships don't happen because you chose the wrong person. They happen because you have never truly understood yourself. This book may completely change the way you think about love. It says that every intimate relationship moves through 4 stages: the honeymoon stage, the disillusionment stage, the introspection stage, and the revelation stage. And most relationships die in the second stage. Not because love is gone, but because people don't understand that disillusionment is not the end of love. It is the doorway to real love. Hashtag why you keep meeting the same kind of person. Have you ever noticed this strange pattern? After every breakup, you swear to yourself, never again. I will never date this type of person again. But then the next person shows up and somehow it's the same story in a different body. You leave someone controlling, only to meet someone even more controlling. You break up with someone emotionally unavailable, only to find yourself with another person who still can't communicate. That is not a coincidence. The author says there is a hidden program running deep inside you. He calls it your inner pattern. And for many people, that pattern was written very early, often between the ages of 3 and 5. If your parents were too busy to spend time with you, you may have formed the belief, I am not worthy of love unless I achieve something. I have to be excellent to deserve attention. If your parents were overprotective and controlled everything, you may have formed the belief, I am weak. I need someone else to take care of me. These beliefs become like invisible glasses. You don't just look at the world through them, you choose people through them. You notice the people who fit your old belief, and you often ignore the ones who don't. The book gives a very precise metaphor. Each of us is searching for love while carrying an incomplete map. And on that map, we are not looking for a prince or a princess. We are looking for someone who perfectly fits our wounds. Whatever you feel you lack, you will be drawn to someone who seems to have it. If you lack security, you may be attracted to someone who makes big promises. If you lack validation, you may fall for someone who praises you constantly. But the problem is this: very often, those people only look like they have what you need. In reality, they are just as incomplete as you are. And it gets even more uncomfortable. Your inner pattern doesn't just decide who you fall in love with. It also decides how the relationship plays out. The author says an intimate relationship is like a mirror. It reflects your deepest fears and desires. Whatever you fear most, you are likely to encounter inside the relationship. If you are terrified of being abandoned, you may keep testing your partner, and eventually push them away. If you are afraid of being controlled, you may become extremely sensitive, and even interpret normal care as manipulation. In other words, the director hasn't changed. The script hasn't changed. Only the actor has changed. But here is what matters. This pattern was not a choice you made consciously. It was formed in a time when you had very little power. And now that you can see it, you have something you didn't have back then: awareness. Awareness is the beginning of choice. The next time you feel intensely attracted to someone, don't rush in blindly. Pause and ask yourself 2 questions. What exactly am I attracted to in this person? And does that trait happen to fill an emptiness inside me? If the answer is yes, be careful. It may not be love yet. It may be a familiar trap, but one you can now choose differently. Hashtag the 4 stages of intimate relationships. The author describes relationships as moving through 4 seasons. Each season has its own task, and most love stories die somewhere between spring and summer. Hashtag stage 1. The honeymoon stage, the spring of love. When you first meet that person, they feel like an angel sent from heaven to save you. Even their flaws look adorable. If they play video games all day, you call it a childlike spirit. If they don't talk much, you call it depth. Your brain is flooded with dopamine and phenylethylamine. You feel high. Neuroscience has found that the brain in early romantic love looks surprisingly similar to the brain under the influence of certain addictive substances. So yes, in a very real sense, you are addicted. Addicted to this person. Addicted to the feeling. You believe you've found your soulmate. You believe this is the one. But the author says this stage usually lasts anywhere from 3 months to 2 years. Hashtag stage 2. Disillusionment, the summer of love. When the hormones settle down, you suddenly begin to wonder, wait, why is this person so different from the one I first met? The video games are no longer childlike. Now they look irresponsible. The quietness is no longer depth. Now it looks like emotional immaturity. You begin to see the real person. And more importantly, your childhood wounds and unmet needs start surfacing. You begin asking your partner to give you what you never received as a child. If you lacked love growing up, you may demand 24-hour attention. If you were controlled too much as a child, you may demand absolute freedom. The book gives a painful but powerful truth. In the disillusionment stage, we are often not really fighting with our partner. We are fighting with the shadows of our own childhood. The partner is only the trigger. They trigger our deepest fear, anger, and pain. For example, your partner forgets your birthday and you explode. But maybe you are not really angry about the birthday. Maybe that moment awakened the old feeling of being ignored. Most people break up when they reach this point. Then they find someone new and restart the honeymoon stage. But if you don't finish the lesson inside disillusionment, your next relationship will simply repeat the same script. Disillusionment is not the end. It is the beginning of real intimacy. #### Stage 3. Introspection, the autumn of love, the season of harvest. After you have argued enough, fought enough, and exhausted each other enough, you may finally begin to realize, maybe the problem is not entirely the other person. You start looking inward. Why do I react this way? Why do I need this so badly? Why does this one sentence hurt me so much? At this stage, you have to make one crucial choice. Will you keep treating your partner as the enemy, or will you treat them as a mirror? If you choose to see them as a mirror, every behavior that irritates you becomes information. It reflects something inside you that may need healing. And when you begin to see the relationship this way, something changes. You stop trying so hard to fix the other person, and you start working on yourself. You stop demanding from the outside, and you begin giving to yourself from the inside. #### Stage 4. Revelation, the winter of love, the season where new life is quietly forming. When you have done the inner work, you discover that you no longer need your partner to fill the emptiness inside you. Because you are no longer empty in the same way. Now you are together not because you need each other to survive, but because you choose each other. You are two independent people walking side by side. The book puts it beautifully. Real intimacy is not two broken people trying to become one whole person. It is two whole people creating something greater together. When both people stop taking from each other and begin giving to each other, love finally begins to flow. This kind of love is not possession or control. It is freedom, support, and allowing the other person to become who they truly are. Unfortunately, many people never reach this fourth stage. They either die in the war of disillusionment, or they run away during introspection. They would rather replace the person and start over than face their own inner work. And the result is predictable. New person, same problem. ### How to survive the disillusionment stage. This is the most practical part of the book. If disillusionment is so painful, why do we have to go through it? Is there a way to move through it without destroying the relationship? The author's answer is fascinating. The pain of disillusionment is actually a gift in disguise. It comes to help you heal your childhood wounds. ### Projection. The first tool to understand is projection. Projection means that you take the parts of yourself you cannot accept, project them onto your partner, and then desperately try to change them. For example, if you are a workaholic, you may be furious at your partner for being lazy. But maybe what you truly hate is not their laziness. Maybe deep down you also want to rest, but you don't allow yourself to rest. So whenever you feel an intense urge to change something about your partner, pause and ask, is this trait something I have suppressed in myself? If yes, then your task is not to change them. Your task is to accept that rejected part of yourself. ### Co-creators, not victims. The book also makes another uncomfortable point. In intimate relationships, there are no pure victims. There are co-creators. Now, I need to be very clear about what this does not mean. It does not mean that abuse is acceptable. It does not mean anyone should stay in harm's way. If you are in a relationship that is destructive or unsafe, your safety comes first, always. What this idea means, in the context of two basically healthy people struggling inside a difficult pattern, is this. If you stay in a relationship that repeatedly hurts you in familiar ways, there is usually some hidden psychological need being met. Maybe it confirms an old belief that you are unlovable. Maybe it gives you a reason not to take responsibility for your own life. Understanding this isn't about blaming yourself. It's about seeing the full picture so you can finally make a real choice, not from blindness but from clarity. Hashtag 3 practical methods. Method 1, the pause button. When an argument is about to begin, press pause. Not silent treatment, not emotional punishment. A real pause. Then ask yourself 3 questions. What am I really angry about? What does this remind me of? What do I truly need right now? Very often, you will discover that you are not really angry about the present event. If your partner doesn't text back quickly, maybe you are not angry about the message itself. Maybe you are angry because it touches the old wound of feeling ignored. Once you see that, say the need directly instead of attacking the behavior. Instead of saying, "Why do you never text me back?" you might say, "When I don't hear from you, I start to feel unimportant. What I really need is reassurance." That one sentence can change the entire conversation. Method 2, the mirror practice. Treat your partner as a mirror. Every trait that makes you uncomfortable may be showing you an area where you need to grow. If they seem selfish, maybe life is asking you to learn self-care. If they seem weak, maybe life is asking you to loosen your grip on control. When you see it this way, your partner stops being the enemy and becomes a teacher. Method 3, the needs map. Write down every need you have in the relationship. Security, companionship, understanding, support, romance. Then next to each one, write, "How can I meet this need myself?" If you need security, maybe build a stable career and a stable inner life. If you need companionship, develop your own interests, friendships, and routines. When you learn to meet yourself, the relationship immediately becomes lighter. Your partner is no longer carrying the impossible job of saving you. And here is the most important point the author repeats again and again. An intimate relationship is not here to make you happy. It is here to wake you up. It is like a magnifying glass. It enlarges every hidden wound, every fear, every insecurity, and puts it right in front of you. You can choose to escape and repeat the same pattern with someone else. Or you can choose to face it and use the relationship as a path of transformation. Every argument becomes a chance to heal. Every conflict becomes an invitation to grow. When you understand relationships this way, the relationship changes from a battlefield into a training ground, from a prison into a school. Of course, this doesn't mean that if you grow internally, the relationship will automatically survive. A relationship takes 2 people. If the other person refuses to grow, the relationship may still become impossible. But once you have done your own work, you gain the wisdom to choose. You can finally see whether this relationship is worth continuing, not from fear, not from dependence, but from clarity. Hashtag what is real love? After understanding the 4 stages, after seeing that disillusionment is the doorway to deeper love, the book gives a very counterintuitive answer. Real love is not a feeling. Real love is a choice. Real love is what remains after the hormones fade. It is seeing the other person's flaws clearly and still saying, "I know who you are, and I still choose to walk with you." There is a line in the book that moved me deeply. Love is not finding a perfect person. Love is learning to see an imperfect person with a more complete heart. The author says real love has 3 qualities. The first is freedom. You don't try to control the other person, and you don't let them control you. You are both free individuals. You can choose to stay and you can choose to leave. That freedom is not a threat. It makes love pure because you know the other person is not staying because they are trapped. They are staying because they want to. The second is growth. Real love makes both people better. Not because you force yourself to change for the other person, but because their presence inspires you to become more whole. In this relationship, you are not consuming each other. You are helping each other unfold. The third is compassion. Compassion means you can understand and accept the other person's imperfections. You can see where their patterns come from. You can understand their fear, their wounds, their defenses. You don't look down on them because they are imperfect. You become more tender because you understand what they have carried. The book gives a beautiful image. A real intimate relationship is like 2 trees. Each tree has its own roots, draws nourishment from its own soil, and grows toward the sky. Their branches meet and intertwine above, creating a larger shade together. They are close but not entangled, connected but not dependent. Hashtag learn to love yourself first. So how do we reach that kind of relationship? The author's core answer is simple. Learn to love yourself first. I know that sounds like a cliché, but it is psychologically real. The way you relate to yourself determines what kind of people you attract, what you tolerate, and how you behave once you're in a relationship. Only when you learn to love yourself can you truly love someone else. The book gives 4 practical suggestions. First, stop attacking yourself. Replace "I'm so stupid" with "I'm still learning." Replace "I'm useless" with "I am worthy of love." Be gentler with yourself, and the whole world starts to feel a little gentler too. Second, set boundaries. Learn to say no. Your time, energy, and emotions are valuable resources. Give them only to people who are worthy of them, and that includes yourself. Third, meet your own needs. If you want romance, buy yourself flowers. If you want companionship, learn how to keep yourself company first. When your basic emotional needs are not completely outsourced to your partner, you become far less anxious in love. Fourth, forgive yourself. Forgive your imperfections, your mistakes, your weakness. Nobody is born knowing how to love well. Give yourself patience. Conclusion, becoming whole. Near the end of the book, the author offers one sentence worth remembering. The greatest value of an intimate relationship is not that it gives you a perfect partner. It gives you a chance to know yourself and become yourself. Through the mirror of the relationship, you see who you really are, including the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. And only what you can see can be transformed. An intimate relationship is a spiritual practice. Your partner is not your enemy. They are your fellow traveler. Together, you face the fears inside you, move through illusion, and move toward awakening. That process can be painful, but it is worth it, because in that process you don't just gain love. More importantly, you become a more complete person. So don't make intimate relationships too heavy, and don't make them too light. If you make them too heavy, you lose yourself. If you make them too light, you miss the chance to grow. See them as a gift from life, a chance to understand yourself, heal yourself, and become yourself. When you truly understand the nature of intimacy, you will stop asking, "Why do I never meet the right person?" Because in a deeper sense, everyone you meet is the right person. Each person is showing you something. Each person is helping you grow in their own way. Your task is not to find the perfect person. Your task is to become a whole person. When you become whole, you no longer need a relationship to fill an inner emptiness. Love is no longer a transaction. It is no longer dependence. It becomes sharing. It becomes creation. It becomes two whole people creating a more beautiful possibility together. That is the message of intimate relationships. Love is not outside you. It is inside you. It is not about finding. It is about becoming. It is not about getting. It is about giving. And once you understand that, your relationships and maybe your entire life can begin to change. If this resonated with you, drop a like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And I'd love to know, which of the 4 stages are you in right now? Let me know in the comments. I read them. I'll see you in the next book.